Welcome back to the Infinite Expansion Podcast. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to be exploring the idea that your mind is uh, a powerful tool for shaping your reality. And we'll be looking at a talk by Dr. Joseph Murphy.
Oh, yeah. I love Dr. Murphy.
He's got this talk called You Are in God's River of Mind. And
That's a good one.
yeah, the title might sound a bit out there, but the concepts he presents are fascinating.
It's so interesting how he kind of blends those philosophical ideas with insights from, science. And it's
Yeah.
like this bridge between what we might consider like woo-woo
Yeah.
and the actual tangible world around us.
Exactly. He starts by saying that thoughts are things and
Yeah.
not just kind of fleeting notions, but like actual forces with energy and vibration.
Right.
Now, I know that might sound like a leap,
Hmm.
but think about it in terms of energy.
Okay.
So Einstein's famous equation, MC101, it tells us that matter is essentially energy vibrating at different frequencies. So if everything in the universe is energy, wouldn't it make sense that our thoughts also have their own unique vibrational energy?
Exactly. And I mean, implications of that are pretty mind-blowing because if our thoughts are indeed energy, then they're constantly interacting with the world around us and kind of influencing our experiences in ways we may not even realize.
So let's talk about this river of mind concept.
Okay.
Dr. Murphy uses this analogy to describe the constant flow of thoughts and ideas that we're all connected to. Like we're all swimming in this vast ocean of consciousness,
Right.
and the currents are constantly influencing us.
Have you ever had a sudden idea just pop into your head seemingly out of nowhere or felt a strong intuition about something?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's you tapping into the river of mind, this like universal stream of thought that connects us all.
That's a cool way to think about it. It kind of explains those moments when you hear about like two scientists on opposite sides of the world
Mm.
who make the same discovery simultaneously, even though they haven't been in contact with each other. It's like they both dipped into the same current of thought.
Precisely. And this isn't just some kind of mystical idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we see evidence of this interconnectedness in quantum physics, where particles can influence each other instantaneously, regardless of distance. It suggests a deeper level of connection than we might perceive with our senses.
So how does this relate to us, in our everyday lives?
Well,
Dr. Murphy suggests that we can consciously choose to focus on positive, constructive thoughts and actually redesign our future by doing so.
yes.
He talks about dwelling on thoughts of truth, justice, and goodness as a way to shift our reality.
Now, I know some people might hear that and think, oh, so it's all about positive thinking and everything will just magically fall into place, but it's not quite that simple.
Right.
What Dr. Murphy's really talking about is changing our underlying beliefs and thought patterns,
Yeah.
which in turn can affect our actions and choices and ultimately our experiences.
Right. It's not just about wishing for things to be different. It's about actively cultivating a mindset that aligns with what we want to create. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah,
I mean-
it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
Welcome back to the Infinite Expansion Podcast. We're going to keep going with our exploration of Dr. Joseph Murphy's ideas about the power of thought and how it can shape our reality.
One of the things that really stood out to me in his talk was this concept of living life backward.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how, like, when we focus on negativity and fear and limitations, it's like we're walking against the current, like we're constantly battling against the natural flow of life.
It's such a powerful analogy, isn't it? And he
Yeah.
contrasts that with this idea of living life abundantly,
Mm.
which is like, aligning our thoughts with truth and love and a sense of expansion. So it's about flowing with the current of creation rather than resisting it.
I like that. And he doesn't just leave us with this kind of abstract idea. He actually gives us a tool for cultivating this mindset.
Oh, right. The affirmations.
Yes, exactly. He specifically suggests using affirmations like divine right action is mine, or divine guidance is mine, divine love fills my mind and heart. And he says that repeating these phrases regularly can help to reprogram our subconscious mind.
And what's interesting is they work on like multiple levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on one hand, they help us to, consciously choose the thoughts that we want to focus on.
Right.
But on like a deeper level, by repeating these positive statements, we're essentially creating new neural pathways in our brains.
Wow.
Strengthening the connections that are associated with, those positive beliefs.
So it's not just wishful thinking. There's like an actual neurological basis for this idea
Right.
of changing our thought patterns through repetition.
Exactly.
But Dr. Murphy also emphasizes that it's not enough to just say the words we need to feel them.
Absolutely. Remember, thoughts are energy and emotions amplify that energy.
Right.
So when we combine those positive affirmations with genuine feeling, we're basically supercharging their power to influence our reality.
I can see how that would make a huge difference if you're just kind of mindlessly repeating a phrase. It's probably not going to have the same impact as if you're really embodying the feeling behind it.
Exactly. And this brings us to another important concept that Dr. Murphy highlights: forgiveness.
Okay.
He talks about how holding on to grudges, resentment, self-condemnation, it's like poisoning the soil of our mental garden.
That's a really vivid image.
It creates this toxic environment where negativity just thrives.
So how do we actually go about cultivating forgiveness? Because it can be so hard to let go of hurt and anger, especially when we feel like we've been wronged.
Yeah, forgiveness is definitely a process. It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but Dr. Murphy emphasizes that it's not about condoning someone else's actions.
Okay.
It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of carrying those negative emotions.
Yeah.
It's choosing peace over pain, love over hate.
That makes sense.
He even shares a story about a man who transformed his life by forcing himself to smile and say something nice to everyone he encountered. Yeah. The man's name was Cyrus, and he was known for being really grumpy and sarcastic. But when he started making a conscious effort to be kind, even when he didn't feel like it,
Mm-hmm.
his whole demeanor changed. His health improved, his relationships flourished, and he experienced this like newfound sense of joy.
That's a pretty amazing example of how just changing our outward behavior can actually shift our internal state.
Oh.
It's like the act of smiling and speaking kindly actually helped him to cultivate those feelings within himself.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive recipients of our emotions. We have the power to choose them, to cultivate them.
Yeah.
And when we choose forgiveness, we're essentially weeding out the poisonous plants of resentment and bitterness from our mental garden and making space for compassion and understanding to grow.
Welcome back to the Infinite Expansion Podcast. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the power of thought with Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I'm really excited about this last part because we're getting into the practical stuff,
Yeah.
the tools we can actually use to shape our reality.
Yeah, that's what I love about Dr. Murphy's work. It's not just these abstract concepts. It's like he gives us actionable steps that we can take to create, positive change.
Exactly. And one technique that really resonated with me was this idea of planting seeds in the Garden of Eden of our minds.
Oh, yeah, that's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah, it really is like our subconscious mind is this fertile garden,
Mm-hmm.
and we can choose where thoughts to cultivate, like which seeds to plant.
Yeah, it's like a gardener carefully selecting, the seeds that they want to grow.
Right.
We can be really intentional about the thoughts that we allow to take root.
So it's not just a one-time thing. It's like we're consistently tending to this mental garden,
Yeah.
Nurturing those positive seeds.
Exactly. He even recommends like writing down your affirmations
Oh, wow.
and reading them aloud several times a day to really imprint them on your subconscious.
Interesting. He also talks about the importance of feeling the truth of these affirmations as we repeat them.
Right. It's not just going through the motions. You got to embody those emotions
Yeah.
that are associated with those positive statements.
Another technique that I thought was really interesting was this concept of living in the end, which sounds a little paradoxical, but
yeah.
what Dr. Murphy is suggesting is that we visualize ourselves as already having achieved our goals, like feeling that joy and satisfaction right now.
It's such a powerful way to shift our focus from, lack and limitation to abundance and possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of dwelling on what we don't have, we're basically training our minds to experience the feeling of having it now.
Yeah, and that can help to attract those experiences.
Exactly. It's like creating a magnetic pull towards what we desire by aligning our thoughts and emotions with it.
It's not just wishful thinking, though, right? There's also this element of trust involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Murphy talks about trusting the process, having faith that the universe is conspiring to support our highest good.
Even when we can't see the path clearly,
Right. Even when we encounter obstacle
we trust that we're being guided.
in the right direction.
And I think that's where this whole idea of infinite expansion really comes in. It's recognizing that we're not limited by our current circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more potential within us waiting to be unlocked.
It's about embracing the unknown, knowing that even, challenges and setbacks, those are just opportunities for growth.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of thought, what are some key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember that we're not just passive observers in our lives.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose our thoughts and cultivate our emotions and shape our reality.
It starts with awareness.
Exactly. Paying attention to those thoughts that we're feeding our minds.
And then taking action.
Choosing to focus on the positive, practicing forgiveness, using affirmations, visualizing our goals, these are all tools that we can use to create the life that we desire.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Find what works best for you.
The key is to stay open, keep learning, and trust that the universe is supporting your journey of infinite expansion.
Thanks, beautiful. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Infinite Expansion Podcast. Until next time, keep expanding.